Hey beautiful people, welcome back to our channel. I am Anathi.
And I'm Saul.
And we are Mr. and Mrs. B. In today's video, we're going to be sharing 5 tips that we have for first-time home buyers and the biggest mistake that we made when we were buying our first home.
Yeah, and you don't want to miss that. So this is you now, like you've worked your way up in your corporate ladder, or you found yourself with a stash of money and you think like you are ready now to buy a house, but you don't know where to start. Like you know how much you want to spend on a house, but you don't know where to start. Then you don't know what to do actually. You go to Google to provide 24, you see houses, but you don't know where to start. So today we'll be sharing tips and what?
And ideas basically of
Yes.
where you could start and how you could start. So first things first, we need to talk about money. So you need to have a budget, but your budget must be realistic. When it comes to being realistic, I mean, you can't want a 4-bedroom house with 3 in-suites and double garage in Sandton for 900,000. That's just not realistic. So you also need to go on apps like Property 24 just to have an idea of what the budget you have set can afford you.
So on Property 24, there's a tool that you can use. It's called affordability. It's an affordability check. Like you can put your annual gross income and the interest rate. Like you can use the prime rate as a base, like as a guidance. And then you can also put. You also need to put the duration of your bond.
Yeah.
For example, 20 years. It's not advisable to put 30 years. Of course, it's gonna help you to bring down your bond payment, but 20 years is the best. It's the best way to go.
Yeah, you don't want to see yourself paying for
Yes.
a house for 30 years. So that will give you an idea of what bond to expect for a house or a property of how much.
Yeah, so on that tool, like after putting all those details there, it will give you a total amount that you can afford to pay for a house. Because I think that app, it uses like your 30% of your annual income. Actually, on your monthly gross income, it will take 30%, and then that 30% will be the one that will be used towards paying your bond.
And that's what banks typically approve.
Yes.
Also, another tip for improving your affordability is you can also start off by minimizing your small debts before actually checking for affordability for a house. For instance, if there's things that you can close off so that those don't deduct from your salary monthly, you can go ahead and do that. Like for instance, if you're still paying Mr. Price, or there's a phone that you're paying for and you feel like you want to redirect those funds towards your property, you can go ahead and close those off before you start thinking of buying a property.
So now that you have your budget in check, you know how much you can afford for a house, how much you can afford to pay for a house on a monthly basis for 20 years.
Or 10.
Or 10, it will depend.
Or 5.
Okay. So you'll start, you can go to Property 24, and you can also go to private property, and then put your filters there. The most important filter is to set the price. So set a price range, and one thing that is advisable is that don't go, if the affordability check says you afford to buy a 3 million house, it's just an advice. Don't go for a 3 million house, because there's like interest rate hikes and all that. You find that you no longer afford once they increase the interest rate.
Never go for maximum affordability, because things can always change.
Yes.
You need that room like that wiggle room between what you actually can afford and what you're paying in case there's interest rate hikes, in case there's an emergency that you need to attend to, so that you are able to still live within your means. Oh, and also, like, once you have found the house that you want, right, and you have applied for your home loan, during that time when the loan is being processed, don't change your financial standing. By that I mean, if you had one car before, don't now go and buy an additional car while they're still processing your loan application, because that changes your affordability and that will ultimately impact the pending home loan approval.
Yes, so in simple terms, don't buy a car while you just put an application for a bond.
Or anything major that you will need to pay off monthly.
Yes, so you can do that after if you still have money.
Okay, and then the second thing is location. Location is very key when you're buying a house.
So people have multiple reasons for buying a house, but mostly people who buy houses, like it's people who are working, and people who are working, you need to buy a house where it's in an ideal or almost an ideal location, where it's very close to your workplace, it's very close to like your shopping complex, your school, hospital, and all. Most people don't check these things. You just see a nice house, like, oh, and you buy.
And then you have to drive 1.5 hours to get to work.
Consider traffic and things like that.
So location is very key. And also, when it comes to location, try to buy a house in a location that will still be applicable to your life, maybe within the next 5 years or so. Don't buy a house in a location where you're gonna work for 6 months, and then after 6 months you have to move to somewhere different. Of course, things happen, it's life after all, but if you know that you're moving in 6 months from a particular location, do not buy a house there. It's not advisable.
Yes, and one more thing is that like some jobs, like you find offers in Cape Town, you find offers in Devon. For example, I live in Gauteng. When I buy a house, I need to consider such things, that what will happen now if I get a job in Cape Town or outside South Africa. So you need to also have that at the back of your mind, that okay, if I'm taking this commitment, is my life most likely to change within the next 4 or 5 years? That will make you that will help you make a decision, or whether like you want to go for the house.
And also, if your life does change and you're in a position now where you need to sell, is that house in that location gonna be able to sell?
Yeah,
that's another thing. The next thing is the actual property. So when looking for a property, you need to decide whether you want a standalone house or whether you want a house in an estate.
Yeah, so both have advantages and disadvantages. So the advantages of staying in an estate are so obvious. It's safe, and like the estate is well taken care of. Most of the things are done for you. You just need to pay a certain fee.
Yes.
So we'll talk about that the later stage in the video. So a standalone house, we know it's not safe. We live in South Africa, man. Break-ins happen almost every day. So if you think you are Chuck Norris and you're not scared of any break-ins and like these hijackings that are happening, like while and you're at your driveway, like it's so common now in South Africa. So like you have to choose. Like the advantage I can think of buying a standalone house is that you can do as you please. You can paint your house red, no one's gonna say anything. You can paint it black, no one's gonna say anything. If you want to put pin gates, it's your house, you can do whatever you want. So that's an advantage for living in a standalone house. And the disadvantages I've already mentioned is the security. And security for most of us it's a priority. It's a priority. And while living in an estate, the disadvantage is that there's body corporate. So and there's rules in an estate. There's certain things that you can't do. For instance, painting your house red. You can't do that because it will. No one will want to buy a house next to a red house.
And also, you need to keep in line with the aesthetics of the estate. Yes. So if the houses are white, you can't just pop up and paint your house pink.
Yeah, so there's a reason for those rules.
Yes, and also if you want to extend your house in an estate, you first have to get approval for whatever structural changes you want to do to your house. You don't just wake up and call Malumu Mandla to come extend your house. It doesn't work that way.
So there's 2 approvals that you need to get from your neighbors all around and from the municipality. And then that's when you can go ahead with your renovations or whatever. But in a standalone, you just need to get an approval from the municipality. That's
and then you go.
Then off you go. And another advantage of standalone is that there are no levies because it's just you and your yard. You cut your own grass. You maintain your yard.
You're not paying for security.
You're not paying for security. You pay for your own security, like your ADT. All those are independent security companies. So, yeah.
And another thing when it comes to the actual property that you need to decide whether you want a new house or an old house.
Yes, that's one thing again.
And that comes with transport costs. Explain the transport costs.
So this is what happens. If you want to buy a new house, like from a new development, like the transfer fees are included in your whole purchase price, right? So the bank will finance everything. So what and there's a bill that South Africa passed in a couple of years ago that if you buy a house that is less, that's 1 million or less, there are no transfer fees. You don't have to worry about that. You just pay or apply for a bond for that purchase price. That's all, you get your house. But if you're buying a house that's 1 million and above, there's what you call transfer fees. So the lawyers get involved. They transfer the house from
the previous owner into your name. And that's quite costly.
Very costly.
So you need, when you're buying a house from someone or an old house, for lack of a better word, you need to have in mind that you need to have that money like readily available for those transfers to actually happen.
Yes, and one thing as well to note is that money doesn't contribute to your bond payment. It's just the once-off payment that goes to your lawyers and your bond originators and all that. That's all, and that money is gone.
You start your bond
then you start facing your bond man to man.
And then also when it comes to the property, you need to know what's important for you in a property. For an example, when we were looking for a house, what was important for me wasn't necessarily important for him. For me, it was all about the kitchen. The kitchen needed to be spacious, it needed to be crisp, it needed to be beautiful, and it was all about the bathroom.
Well, for me, I care about the yard. I need the yard space.
He likes yard space.
You know, like these days, the developers, man, what they do, I consider the daylight robbery. They'll put your house like 5 meters or 10 meters away from your neighbor. Like, where are you gonna have your space? So, what I consider is the space, and obviously the aesthetics of the house. Like, it needs to look modern.
He loves modern houses, whereas I'm not that. Like, for me, it doesn't matter. For me, the inside is what matters. So those are also some of the things that you need to bear in mind before you go and purchase a property. And with that said, once you have narrowed down the properties that you want, you must view.
That's very important.
And when you are tired of viewing, view even more. You must view.
And don't let these property agents put pressure on you to sign a purchase offer. There's one thing called an OTP. offer to purchase. Once you sign that thing, you are within. You are within. To get out of that thing is very, very lengthy process. So don't sign anything before you and your ancestors agree.
And you are very sure.
And you are very sure about the house. So be mindful of that. Offer to purchase.
It's binding.
They like to say OTP. I'll send you OTP as if it's nothing. That thing is binding. So be careful. Go view the houses, and if you see a house that you like, shortlist, and then go view another one. Like just have like
There's
maybe
no
4 or
pressure.
5 on your shortlist.
There's absolutely no pressure.
On your shortlist, have at least 4 or 5, I think. And then from there, you can make a decision.
Okay, the next thing is levies. What are levies, babe?
Okay, there's what we call levies. So levies are it's the amount you pay to the body corporate, like your homeowners association within an estate. So this is applicable for people who are buying houses in an estate. If you buy a standalone house, there's no homeowners, there's nothing, it's just
it's not applicable to you.
So in an estate, there's security, there's daily upkeep or weekly upkeep, you're cutting off your grass, if you have a garden, looking after that garden. And some estates, they also cover
garden services.
They also cover garden services, and some also cover the building insurance, like if your geyser were to burst, you can claim through your homeowners. So levies is that amount that you pay every month. It differs from estate to estate based on what they include in the.
This is another thing that you need to be very careful of. When you have shortlisted your properties and you're viewing the properties, make sure you ask if it's not indicated there on Property 24 or private property or whatever website you're using. Make sure you ask the agent, what are the levies in this estate? Because those also play a vital role when it comes to your affordability, because levies can make or break your budget. So you might qualify for a 15,000 rand house, for a repayment of 15,000, and you tell yourself, oh, I've seen this house, it's 1.5 billion. Right now my repayment will be 15,000. I'm taking it. Only to find that the levies on that house are 3,000. Already now, this goes on top of that 15,000 that you were prepared to pay, and now you need to pay 18,000 rand a month. So levies are very, very important for you to know.
Yes, and one thing to also ask, after asking how much are the levies, is what is included in the levies? What are those levies covering? So that you know, like you don't have to budget for someone to come cut your lawn every week.
If they include garden services.
Yes, and if you should look for a building insurance if it's not included in the levies.
Very important.
So the next thing is rates and taxes. Rates and taxes is your municipality, where you pay for garbage removal, your sewage, your water,
sanitation.
yes, and your electricity connection. Those you pay for every month, on top of your levies. So levies you pay to your homeowners, and rates and taxes you pay to the municipality. So if you have a prepaid meter of electricity, you'll buy electricity at your own expense. There's no bill that will cover it.
It's not covered by the rates.
It's not covered by the rates. So, and your water, you'll have a prepaid meter there. If you're using prepaid meter, you submit the readings every month, and then they bill you for your water. For sewage, they just use an average, I think, because there's no meter for sewage. So I think it's standard across the board. So they'll combine all those fees, and then that will make up your rates and taxes. Needs to be paid every month. And one thing as well to know, once you went through all this process, applied for a bond, and then now your bond is registered, your rates and taxes not starts being.
The reason we're laughing is that this leads into the biggest mistake we made when we bought our property. So when we bought our property, we were told that we will live in the property while the registration of the property is happening with the lawyers. We were allowed to live in the property and pay occupational rent. What the two of us did not know is that while you're paying occupational rent, you need to be paying your rates and taxes as well. So we were living our best lives, paying our occupational rent and not paying the rates and taxes. Up until I was buying electricity the one time, and then it deducted money from the electricity I was buying. So I call up my sister. I'm like, "Aibo, what's happening? I was trying to buy electricity. It didn't go through for the whole amount." And my sister's like, "Are you probably owing the municipality?" Which was a shocker to us. And when we went, the bill that we found there, because we lived for how many months? I can't remember the exact number of months. But we found a bill waiting for us there by the municipality because we were not paying rates and taxes. So we needed to pay that big amount that we neglected to pay while we were paying occupational rent. So if you do get a property and you stay in the property while you're paying occupational rent, know that your rates and taxes will come into effect immediately.
Yeah, immediately you take occupation. Once you start using water, you must know someone must pay for that.
You can't use it for free.
Once you start taking your garbage, you must know someone must pay for that. Yes, so be mindful of that as well.
We hope you guys enjoyed this video and that you found the tips useful.
Yes, and if you have more questions about this whole process, you can leave a comment and we'll try to give you the best advice as we can.
Yeah, but remember, we are not professionals at this. We're basically just sharing what we experienced and what we learned from buying our first property.
We are homeowners. We are owners, guys. So.
Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next